Small businesses are often the backdrop of very special memories. I spent like my whole 20s hanging out at the Raven on Mount Pleasant Street. And I still go back there kind of when my roommate from those years comes back to town. And that's probably about it. And what we talk about is all the stuff we did there. Most people don't have an outlet to share these kinds of stories, as sweet as they are, but the folks at District Bridges want to change that. Their new Love Your Neighborhood campaign features stories of love and connection from the 7 neighborhoods they work in, and there's also special limited edition swag like bucket hats, t-shirts, and stickers that you could buy to rep your neighborhood. Show your neighborhood spirit and spread some love this summer. Visit districtbridges.org/loveyourneighborhood to share your special memory today. Once again, that's districtbridges.org/loveyourneighborhood.
Today on CityCast DC, Montgomery County Public Schools just announced that pickleball will be a varsity sport during the fall 2024 season. So in anticipation of more thunking and thwacking across the DMV, we're revisiting our conversation with WAMU's Matt Blitz from last fall about how the trendy sport is causing a pickle in Northern Virginia. Today's Wednesday, July 31st. I'm Bridget Todd, and here's what DC is talking about. So, Matt, I think of myself as kind of with it when it comes to what's poppin' right now, but I kind of missed the entire pickleball thing. So what is pickleball, and when did it get so popular in DC and the burbs?
Yeah, so pickleball is a sport that's kind of like a mixture of tennis meets ping pong, basically. And it is a sport that is played on basketball courts or tennis courts that are restriped for pickleball. And in terms of a lot of folks who may have trouble with their joints, that may mean older folks play it because it's better on your joints. You're not doing as much, not as much lateral movement, as much vertical movement, and allows just a little less movement. And it still works, cardio and all that stuff. It's a really fun sport. I just played it this past weekend with a bunch of friends. And so it became popular, I think, throughout the country, really, particularly in this region the last few years, and became very popular during the pandemic. Because it's an outdoor sport, you could socially distance. You have a partner usually, but they're usually pretty far away from you. And it became very popular because people had time on their hands. But it was really been growing popularity the last 5 years, especially because it doesn't take much. There's already existing infrastructure. There's tennis courts, there's basketball courts. You can restripe, you can put up a net, and it's pretty easy and pretty simple to set up and play.
What goes into this restriping that you mentioned?
Basically, it's just the dimensions of the court, right? A pickleball court is smaller than a tennis court. It's smaller than a basketball court. So it's just restriping with tape, with basic, I guess, electrical tape. That's what I've used. And just making it the right dimensions for a pickleball court.
So what exactly is going down in Northern Virginia when it comes to pickleball? Because I hear it's causing a little bit of a ruckus.
I mean, that's the correct word, ruckus, in terms of a lot of noise. Yeah, so the noise of the pickleball meeting the paddle creates like a thunk or a pop. I call it the pickleball pop, mostly because that's an alliteration, but it's more of a thunk.
Can you give me like what does it sound like? Can you do it for me?
Thunk. I mean, okay. It does sound like a thunk, yeah. And so it makes a lot of noise, and it's actually a louder noise than tennis. And so what the issue is that these community centers, these outdoor courts at community centers, people are playing like crazy at them, right? They're playing from sun up to sundown, especially in the summer and when there's a lot of light. And there are neighborhoods, there's houses near these courts. And so when folks are waking up in the morning at 7 a.m., they hear the thunk, and they go to bed at night at 10 p.m. and they hear the thunk constantly throughout the day because pickleball is so popular. There's such a limited amount of infrastructure in courts still. And so some of these courts that are very popular attract a lot of people playing throughout the day with that loud pickleball pop noise.
Okay, at first I was like, oh, what's the big deal? Is it really that much louder than tennis? Get over it. But if you're saying it's happening from the moment people wake up to the moment they go to bed, you're hearing that thunk, 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 I can see why these folks are not thrilled.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit of an exaggeration, but that being said, I'm sure if you hear it for 8 or 9 hours, it can feel like you're hearing it for 24 hours at a time. And of course, yeah, there's actually studies that show that the noise of the pickleball hitting the paddle is much louder than tennis. And there's actually studies that also show that there is a noise meter. Basically, if there's a certain amount of noise coming from a community center, houses have to be a certain amount of distance away, and that sound exceeds that. And so, yeah, in Arlington County particularly, I mean, this is true everywhere, but in Arlington County, it has resulted in a bunch of civic associations, neighborhood groups threatening to take legal action on the county, on some of these community centers, for the fact that they are not limiting and the fact that these courts are too close to their houses. When I say that they were threatening legal action, it's not appropriate to say they have taken legal action.
Wow. So just so I have it, are the two camps here like homeowners who live or residents who live next to courts where pickleball is being played and people who like pickleball? Are those sort of the who's who of who's pro and who's anti-pickleball?
I mean, yeah, more or less. I mean, of course, there's that circumstance when there's a overlap, right? There's people that live in the houses nearby who also love pickleball. And I've talked to a couple of them. They all plainly admit that it sounds very loud, but they love it. There was also a circumstance besides just the noise where like the neighborhood civic association claimed that the parking situation is becoming untenable. There's not much parking and people were parking across and blocking the driveways, taking up their spots. There was also flyers that were disseminated at some point by a neighborhood group near this particular community center called Walter Reed Community Center in Arlington County, claiming that the players were bullying kids. Basically, kids would want to come play basketball, and they said, "Get out of here. We want to play pickleball." And that they were publicly urinating.
Oh, God.
Around the community center because there was not enough facilities, bathroom facilities. And so they didn't want to leave their courts, so they had to go somewhere. This is what the flyers claim, and this is beyond just the noise. They were claiming it's become a public nuisance because there's just too many people wanting to play pickleball in this smaller space and all the stuff that comes with it.
Paint Care is all about keeping it simple for district residents. They make recycling leftover paint, stain, and varnish easy with convenient drop-off locations like your local paint or hardware store. Each new paint project is an opportunity to reduce waste, and Paint Care has 3 simple rules for painting smarter. 1, buy the right amount of paint for the job. 2, use up leftover paint. And 3, recycle the rest. Visit paintcare.org/3simplerules to get tips on how to buy the right amount of paint, explore ideas for DIY projects for how to use up leftover paint, and look up your nearest drop-off site in the district.
Let's be real, lawsuits are not fun, but with Paulson & Nace, at least they're a little easier. Paulson & Nace is a D.C. law firm in every sense of the word. It was founded here in 1979. Partner Chris Nace is a local who cares deeply about the D.C. community, even serving on the board of the local branch of the Living Classrooms Foundation in his free time. Nace and his associates Samantha Peters and Maya Perry handle medical malpractice, wrongful death, and other complex injury cases. And they don't just settle every case. They'll go to court. They'll fight for you. Paulson & Nace has even been recognized as one of U.S. News' best law firms. So if you have been hurt or lost a loved one because of someone else's mistake or negligence, call Paulson & Nace for a no-obligation consultation. Visit www.paulsonandnace.com. That's PAULSONANDNACE.com. Or call 202-463-1999.
Is there an aspect to this situation that's like newer residents versus older residents, or Black residents versus white residents? It seems like it's happening along a certain line that I can't quite put my finger on.
Well, I mean, Arlington County, of course, it's pretty well known as a pretty affluent county, right? And pickleball players would claim that this is not necessarily true, but there are studies that older people tend to play pickleball. And so older people tend to have more time in their hands, right? Because maybe they're retired. There is some sort of disagreement, especially in where this community, Walter Reed Community Center, is, which is off Columbia Pike. And Columbia Pike is South Arlington, which has been well known for years to be a more affordable part of Arlington. So there definitely is some of that. I can't say for sure in terms of its kind of the most definitive lines as you described it, but there's definitely an element of this particular community center is in South Arlington. A lot of residents live there, and maybe not all of them are into pickleball. And there are definitely, the community center is filled, it has basketball courts, has various other sports and various other facilities. There's also the claim that people who want to play pickleball are not just from Arlington. These pickleball courts are so popular, they're attracting people from Maryland, Fairfax County, DC. And so there is an element of that they are taking up all these facilities in a neighborhood that really could use all these facilities. A neighborhood that's diverse, a neighborhood that is very populated. It's one of the most populated growing corridors in Arlington County in terms of population. And so all those things are coming together for sure.
And it does seem to be like one of those classic stories of the friction that arises when different kinds of folks share a space with different kinds of priorities and different needs and different wants for what they want the space to be.
Right. And I think that's kind of like, at least as I've been reporting on this, it's become pretty clear that no one is exactly right or wrong in the circumstance, right? Wanting to play a sport outside with people, that's good, right? And using these public facilities to do that is fine. There's nothing inherently wrong with folks wanting to play a sport. But it's also at the same time, you can understand why overcrowding, parking, noise is bothering the houses nearby. And it's about figuring out a compromise where everyone gets somewhat of what they want. I guess in a compromise, no one gets everything they want, but everyone gets somewhat what they want. They want more facilities so they're not overcrowded to play pickleball, but yet the people that live in the house nearby are able to live life in peace. And so what Arlington County has done, and it's cost them some good deal of money so far, is that they put up acoustic fencing around the courts. Basically, courts or fences that block the noise. And I've heard from neighbors, they think it's doing a pretty good job. It's not perfect, but they're doing a pretty good job. Of course, it's cost more than $150,000 so far for Arlington County to put up these fences around this courts at 6 or 7 parks. And that number probably will only grow. In order to make each side at least tolerable with each other, the county has to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars. So
wow. Do you see there being more pickleball courts, fewer courts?
Arlington County is committed to spending between $1.5 million and $2 million to enhance the Walter Reed Community Center's outdoor recreational courts. The project is coming along, and they have committed to doing that. And now there's some pushback because there's a belief that they did not get enough public input into what their project is. But the county is continually saying that this is going to happen. It's just a matter of making sure each side is okay with how it happens. But yeah, I mean, in Arlington County, they've committed to spending a couple $1 million at least on adding more pickleball courts to their public parks and public community centers.
What do you see as the future of pickleball in DC? Like, do you think that we're going to see more arguments about pickleball in other jurisdictions?
I mean, I think we have seen that. I cover Virginia, Northern Virginia, and Fairfax County, we absolutely have seen the same stuff. Fairfax County is a little bit less, at this point, in certain areas are a little less dense than Arlington County. And so maybe the conversation isn't quite as loud, just because Arlington County is a little more dense. But yeah, I mean, the sport of pickleball has grown, but it's grown to the part where it's mainstream at this point, and there's no turning back.
I don't know if this is a weird question, but as someone who reports on pickleball, but also plays pickleball, are you having to include a note that's like, just an editorial note, I also play pickleball, just so you know, readers?
I mean, not necessarily. I don't play in tournaments. I don't play competitive. I play with my friends, and that's about it. I guess you're right. I hope I'm not being disingenuous if I'm not including that I have played the sport of pickleball. But I mean, I think a lot of people at this point have played it just to try it out. And I don't play at 7 a.m. and I don't play it at 10 at night. Every once in a while, I pick up a paddle and ball and hit it, hopefully.
on a good day.
On a good day.
So Matt, given all this, what is the takeaway? Like, how should people understand or contextualize what's happening in Northern Virginia around pickleball?
I mean, I think a part of this, too, is pretty funny, is that in the last year or so, especially the pickleball conversation that's been taking place in Arlington has been featured on 1A, which is a national syndicated show on NPR. It's also was fodder for jokes on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. So it's definitely one of those things where it's being laughed at, but also, like I said earlier, I do think it's a situation where it's kind of like perfectly how do we live in a community together kind of conversation. How do we make everyone happy and feel okay about a compromise that's been reached? And I think this is a kind of a perfect kind of analogy for that in our community. It's like community living. Like we all live in this together as our communities get denser, as they are in Arlington, as they are in DC, as they are in a lot of the surrounding counties in the DC region. How do we work together to make it a better place to live for everyone?
Matt, thanks so much for being here. I'll see you on the pickleball courts.
Yes, you will. Thanks.
That's all for today here on CityCast DC. If you enjoyed the show, share it with the pickleball enthusiast in your life. We'll be back tomorrow morning with even more news from around the city. Talk to you then.